My name is Michelle Lawson. For 33 years, I was Russell Lawson's wife. For 32 of those, I was a mother. For the past 8, a grandmother. These were the roles that defined me, the titles I wore with a quiet, unassuming pride. But standing in my kitchen 3 weeks after we buried Russell, none of them seemed to fit anymore. The house, once a bustling hub of our shared life in the quiet suburbs of Crestwood, felt cavernously silent. The morning sun slanted through the window over the sink, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny, indifferent star in my new, solitary universe. The funeral flowers, a riot of lilies and carnations from friends and neighbors, had barely wilted when the phone calls began. I was watching steam rise from my untouched coffee, the ceramic mug, a gift from my granddaughter, Kathleen, years ago, proclaiming me the world's best grandma, feeling foreign and heavy in my hands. Everything felt foreign. My reflection in the hallway mirror, with its new, deeper lines of grief. My own voice when I finally answered the relentless ringing. "Mom, we need to talk about the house." Donald's voice carried that familiar tone of barely contained impatience, a sound I'd known since he was a teenager asking for the car keys. Now, at 32, he wasn't asking. He was informing. I set the mug down without taking a sip. The coffee had gone cold. "Good morning to you too, Donald." "Don't start, Mom. Lisa and I have been discussing your situation, and frankly, it's not sustainable. This house is too big for you alone. The mortgage payments." "There is no mortgage," I said. The words came out flat, factual. Russell, a man of quiet foresight, had made the final payment 5 years ago, a milestone we'd celebrated with a bottle of champagne on the porch. I'd never mentioned it to the children. They'd assumed we were like them, leveraged to the hilt, and I had, for reasons I was only now beginning to understand, let them. A beat of silence. Then a short, dismissive laugh. It was a sound he'd inherited from his father, but where Russell's laughter was warm and inclusive, Donald wielded it like a weapon. "Mom, please. Dad's pension barely covers your medications. We all know the financial strain you're under." I walked to the window, my gaze falling upon the garden Russell and I had tended for 23 years. The roses, his pride and joy, needed pruning. The herb garden was a tangled, fragrant mess. Tasks that once brought us shared joy now stood as monuments to everything I'd lost. "Your concern is touching," I said, my voice as colorless as my reflection in the glass. 63 years of living were etched into a face that still surprised me in mirrors. "Don't be dramatic. Darlene agrees with me. We think you should consider moving in with one of us." Darlene agrees. My daughter, who hadn't called me personally since the funeral. Who hadn't answered my last 2 messages. "When, exactly, did Darlene share this opinion with you?" Another pause. I could almost picture him running a hand through his thinning hair, a gesture he'd also picked up from Russell. "We had dinner last night. As a family. To discuss your options." "Your options." The phrase landed like a stone in my stomach. Not our mother's future, not how we can help Mom through this difficult time. My options, as if I were a failing business to be liquidated rather than a person to be supported. "I see." I opened the refrigerator, staring at the stacked casserole dishes from well-meaning neighbors, food I had no appetite for. "And these options, they include selling my home?" "It just makes financial sense," he said, the impatience sharpening his tone. "You could help Lisa and me with our down payment. We've been looking at that colonial on Maple Street. And Darlene could use some assistance with Kathleen's college fund. It's a win-win situation. A win-win." I closed the refrigerator door with more force than necessary, the sound echoing in the silent kitchen. He'd meant it exactly like that. Donald had always been transparent in his selfishness, a trait I found almost refreshing compared to Darlene's subtle manipulations. She had learned to ask for things sideways, weaving webs of guilt and obligation that made me feel I was failing her for not offering what she'd never directly requested. "What did you tell your sister about my finances?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Just the truth. That Dad's pension isn't enough. That the house is too much for you to handle alone. That you're probably struggling more than you're letting on." The truth. As if he knew anything about my actual circumstances. as if either of them had bothered to ask detailed questions about Russell's affairs, about the investments he'd managed with quiet diligence, about the modest inheritance from his own mother that we'd nurtured and grown over decades. I thought about the worn leather folder in Russell's desk drawer, the one I'd found while sorting through his papers. It was filled with bank statements, investment portfolios, and the deed to a small villa in Marbella, Spain, a place he'd purchased as a surprise for our retirement. A place where we can watch sunsets and drink wine without anyone asking us for anything, he'd said, showing me the photographs just 6 months before the sudden, shocking heart attack that took him from me. "I'll think about it," I said finally, the words tasting like ash. "Mom, we're not asking you to think about it. We're telling you what needs to happen. Lisa found a buyer already. Her cousin Gregory is in real estate, and he's got a client who's very interested. Cash offer. Quick closing. You can start packing your bags." My hand tightened on the phone until my knuckles were white. "You found a buyer? For my house? We're trying to help you, Mom. The sooner you accept that this is the best solution for everyone, the easier this transition will be." Transition. As if grief were a business merger. As if the dismantling of a 33-year marriage could be reduced to paperwork and profit margins. And where, exactly, am I supposed to live during this transition? Well, that's what we wanted to discuss. Darlene's got that finished basement, and with Kathleen away at college most of the year, there's plenty of space. You'd have your own entrance, your own bathroom. It could work out perfectly. Darlene's basement. The same damp, chilly basement that flooded every spring, where she stored dusty Christmas decorations and exercise equipment she never used. The same basement where I'd been relegated during last year's Thanksgiving dinner, while the real adults ate upstairs. How generous of her. She's excited about it, actually. Thinks it could be good for both of you. You could help with Kathleen when she's home from school. Maybe do some cooking. You know how Darlene struggles with meal planning. Of course. Darlene struggled with meal planning the same way she struggled with laundry, cleaning, and remembering to call her own mother. But she excelled at delegating those struggles to others. "And Donald," I asked, my voice laced with an irony I knew he wouldn't detect, "what role do you play in this generous arrangement?" "Lisa and I will handle the house sale, obviously. The paperwork, the negotiations. We'll make sure you get a fair price." Fair. Donald's definition of fairness had always been tilted steeply in his favor. "I need to think about this," I repeated, my voice now firm. "Mom, there's nothing to think about. Gregory's client is serious. They want to close within the month." A month. They were giving me a month to dismantle the life Russell and I had built together, to surrender the home where we'd hosted their birthday parties and graduation celebrations, where we'd nursed them through chickenpox and heartbreak. A month to erase 33 years. I said, "I need to think about it." "Fine," he sighed, the sound heavy with manufactured disappointment. "But don't take too long. Good opportunities don't wait around forever." The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, holding the phone, listening to the sudden, profound silence that seemed to echo through the empty rooms. I walked to Russell's study, to the solid oak desk where he'd paid bills and planned our future for over 2 decades. The leather folder was still there, tucked beneath old tax returns. I pulled it out and spread the contents across the wooden surface we'd bought at an estate sale when Donald was still in high school. Bank statements showed balances that would make my children's eyes widen. Investment portfolios had weathered market storms and emerged stronger. And there it was, the deed to the villa in Spain, complete with glossy photographs of whitewashed walls, a sun-drenched terrace, and a breathtaking view of the Mediterranean. Russell had been a quiet man, methodical in his planning. He never boasted about money, never flaunted our security. "Let them think we're struggling a bit," he'd said once, after Donald had asked for yet another loan for a failed business venture. "It builds character." I'd thought he was being harsh then. Now I understood it as a profound, protective wisdom. My phone buzzed. A text from Darlene. "Mom, Donald told me about the house. I know this is hard, but it's really for the best. Kathleen's so excited about having Grandma closer. Can't wait to discuss the details. XO. Kathleen." My sweet granddaughter, who'd spent summers with us, who'd learned to bake my mother's sugar cookies in this kitchen and plant tomatoes in this garden. The girl who'd called me every week during her first semester at college, homesick and overwhelmed, seeking comfort from the grandmother who'd always had time for her stories. When was the last time she had called? 2 months ago? 3? I scrolled through my phone, a cold knot forming in my stomach. Nothing since a group text at Christmas, thanking everyone for gifts. No personal messages, no requests for advice, no updates on her classes or her friends. The silence stretched around me, heavy with a terrible realization. They had already moved on. All of them. Russell's death had been an inconvenience to be managed, a financial problem to be solved. And I was simply the final, lingering piece of that problem, another asset to be liquidated for their convenience. I closed the folder and returned it to the drawer. Then I walked upstairs to my bedroom, to the closet where Russell's clothes still hung, still carrying the faint, comforting scent of his aftershave. I pulled a large suitcase from the top shelf. It was time to start packing. But not the kind of packing Donald expected. The law office of West & Associates smelled of leather and old paper, a scent that reminded me of Russell's study, but felt infinitely more powerful. I sat across from Connie West, the estate attorney Russell had chosen years ago. She was a sharp, elegant woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Lawson, I have to say, this is highly unusual," Connie said, spreading the documents across her polished mahogany desk. "Your husband was very specific about these contingencies, but I never expected we'd actually need to implement them." I smoothed the fabric of my black dress, the same one I'd worn to the funeral, and kept my voice steady. "Russell always said I underestimated people's capacity for selfishness. I'm beginning to think he was protecting me from a truth I wasn't ready to see." Connie nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of a document. "The revocable trust he established gives you complete and sole control over all assets. The children were never named as beneficiaries of the real estate or the investment accounts, only the life insurance policy, which they've already received. Everything else, the house, the investments, the property in Spain, belongs entirely to you." "And they don't know about the Spanish property?" "According to Russell's instructions, that information was to be shared only with you, and only after the initial 30-day period following his death." Connie leaned back in her chair, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. "He seemed to anticipate that your children might pressure you into hasty decisions." Pressure. Such a polite word for what Donald had attempted. "The house sale they've arranged," I said. "Can it be stopped?" "You are the sole owner, Michelle. No sale can proceed without your signature. If they found a buyer and are making promises, they are operating under dangerously false assumptions." Connie's smile was thin but deeply satisfied. "Russell was very clear about protecting your autonomy." I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of anxiety I'd been carrying since Donald's call. "And the Spanish property?" "Fully paid for, legally yours. The property management company Russell contracted with sends monthly reports. The house has been maintained and is ready for occupancy whenever you choose." "Whenever you choose." When was the last time someone had spoken to me about choice, rather than obligation? Connie pulled out another folder. "There's something else Russell wanted you to have. He wrote this letter, to be given to you exactly 1 month after his passing. Today marks that date." The envelope was cream-colored, my name written in Russell's familiar, careful script. My hands trembled as I opened it, and his voice, so clear in my memory, seemed to fill the sterile office as I read. "My dearest Michelle, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you're dealing with the aftermath alone. I know our children, love them though we do, and I suspect they are already circling, convinced they know what's best for you. They don't. You are not a burden to be managed or a problem to be solved. You are an intelligent, capable woman who raised 2 children, supported a husband through his career, and managed our household with a grace and wisdom you never gave yourself credit for. Don't let them convince you otherwise. The money and properties are yours. All of them. Yours to do with as you please. Keep them, sell them, give them away. It is your choice. But please, my love, make that choice based on what you want, not on what others expect from you. I have watched you sacrifice your own dreams for decades, always putting our family first. Now, it is time to put yourself first. Go to Spain if you want. Travel the world. Write that novel you always talked about. Whatever brings you joy. The children will survive without your constant sacrifice. In fact, they might even grow stronger for it. With all my love and all my faith in your strength. Russell. P.S. The key to the Spanish house is in my desk drawer, behind the photo of us in Venice. A wonderful woman named Pilar Rodriguez lives next door. She has been caring for the garden and speaks excellent English. I read the letter twice, my vision blurring. Russell had known. He had seen the pattern I was too close to recognize, that my children had learned to view my love not as a gift to be treasured, but as a resource to be exploited. Are you all right? Connie's voice was gentle. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my purse. I'm better than I've been in weeks. What do I need to do to transfer the house deed to my name alone? It's already in your name alone, Connie said. Russell removed the children from all property deeds 3 years ago, after Donald asked him to co-sign on that failed restaurant venture. The restaurant. I remembered the arguments, Donald's fury when Russell refused to risk our retirement savings on his sure thing. I had thought Russell was being harsh. Now I saw it as prescient. There's one more thing, Connie said, pulling out a smaller envelope. Russell asked me to give you this. A debit card and PIN. It's connected to an account he opened last year. He called it your Independence Fund. The card felt solid and real in my palm. How much? $50,000. He deposited money every month, telling me it was for when Michelle finally decides to live for herself. $50,000. Money I knew nothing about, siphoned from his pension and investment dividends while I carefully budgeted our household expenses. Money intended not just for security, but for freedom. I left the law office with a briefcase full of documents and a clarity I hadn't felt since before Russell's heart attack. The house was mine. The Spanish villa was mine. The investments were mine. And most importantly, the choice of what to do with it all was mine alone. My phone rang as I reached my car. Darlene's name. I took a deep breath and answered. Mom, I'm so glad I caught you. I wanted to discuss the basement renovations. Lisa knows a contractor who could put in a kitchenette for you, maybe a separate entrance. It would be perfect, your own little apartment. I unlocked the car but didn't get in, leaning against the cool metal door. How thoughtful of you. I know you're probably worried about the cost, but Donald and I figured we could deduct it from the house sale proceeds. Think of it as an investment in your comfort. Your comfort. Not my independence, not my happiness. My comfort, as if I were an elderly pet being relocated to more manageable quarters. Darlene, I said, my voice even. When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? A pause. What do you mean? I mean, a phone call where you didn't want something. Where you asked about my day, my feelings, my plans. A call just because you missed talking to your mother. Mom, that's not fair. I've been dealing with Kathleen's college expenses, and you know how busy work has been. Kathleen's expenses. Tell me about Kathleen's expenses. Well, tuition is over $20,000 a year, plus room and board, books, her sorority fees. Darlene, I have been sending Kathleen $500 every month since she started college. For 2 years. That's $12,000. Silence. Utter, damning silence. Money that was supposed to help with her expenses, I continued, the words like ice. Money you never mentioned to Donald when you were discussing my supposed financial struggles. Mom, that money helps, but it doesn't cover everything. Have you told Kathleen that I send that money? Another pause, longer this time. She knows you. Help out. Does she know the amount? Does she know it comes from my pension, not from some mythical college fund Russell left behind? I don't see why those details matter. I closed my eyes, feeling something cold and hard settle in my stomach. She doesn't know, does she? She thinks her college expenses are covered entirely by your hard work and sacrifice. She has no idea her grandmother has been quietly funding her education. Mom, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Am I? Or am I finally seeing how very simple it actually is? I hung up and got into my car. My hands were shaking, but not from grief this time. It was anger. A pure, clean anger that felt like waking up after a long, confusing dream. At home, I went straight to Russell's desk and found the small brass key exactly where he'd said it would be, tucked behind a photograph of us in Venice on our 25th anniversary, both of us laughing. I looked younger in the photo, not because of fewer wrinkles or less gray hair, but because I looked genuinely, unguardedly happy. My phone buzzed with another text from Donald. Mom, Gregory needs an answer by tomorrow. His client is getting impatient. Don't mess this up for all of us. For all of us. I deleted the message without responding and opened my laptop. It took me 20 minutes to find the property management company's website and another 10 to compose an email to Pilar Rodriguez, the neighbor who'd been caring for the Spanish house. Dear Mrs. Rodriguez, my name is Michelle Lawson and I am Russell's widow. I believe you have been caring for our house on Calle de las Flores. I am planning to visit Spain very soon and would like to arrange to stay in the house for an extended period. Please let me know what preparations need to be made. Thank you for your kindness in maintaining the property during this difficult time. Sincerely, Michelle Lawson. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I pulled out the suitcase I'd retrieved the day before and began to pack. But first, I opened Donald's childhood closet and began filling boxes with his old trophies, school papers, and the baseball glove Russell had bought him for his 10th birthday. Everything that mattered from his time in this house, carefully wrapped and labeled. I was halfway through Darlene's room when my phone rang. An international number. Mrs. Lawson? This is Pilar Rodriguez. I just received your email. I am so sorry for your loss. Russell spoke of you often. Her English was accented but clear, her voice warmer than any I had heard in weeks. Thank you, Pilar. I hope it's not too much trouble, but I'm thinking about coming to Spain quite soon. Oh, no trouble at all. The house is ready. I check on it every week. The garden is beautiful. Russell would be so happy to know you were coming. When were you thinking to arrive? I looked around Darlene's childhood bedroom, at the boxes of memories I was packing for children who saw me as little more than an obstacle to their inheritance. Next week, I said, a decision solidifying in my heart. I'd like to come next week. The moving truck arrived at 7 in the morning, just as Donald's sleek sedan pulled into my driveway. I watched from my bedroom window as my son climbed out, his face already set in the expression of barely controlled irritation I had learned to dread. He was wearing his serious business suit and carrying a manila folder thick with what I assumed were house sale documents. Perfect timing. The movers were efficient, professional men. I'd hired them to collect the carefully packed boxes from Donald's and Darlene's old rooms, along with several pieces of furniture they'd claimed to want someday: Russell's leather armchair, the antique dining set from my mother, the piano Darlene had begged for and then abandoned. Ma'am, where do you want these boxes delivered? The lead mover asked, consulting his clipboard. The first set goes to 247 Maple Street, I said, handing him Donald's address. The second set to 892 Pine Avenue. Please ring the doorbell and tell them these are gifts from Michelle Lawson. Memories they'll want to keep safe. The mover nodded professionally, but I caught the slight smile tugging at his lips. Donald's sharp knock interrupted us. I opened the door wearing the red dress Russell had always said brought out the color in my cheeks, my hair freshly styled, looking nothing like the grieving widow he expected to manipulate. Mom, what the hell is going on? Why is there a moving truck in your driveway? He demanded, pushing past me. His eyes scanned the boxes labeled with his name. These are my things. My childhood things. Why are you packing up my stuff? I thought you'd want them, I said calmly. Memories are precious, don't you think? His face flushed a deep red. Mom, we need to talk. Gregory's client is ready to make an offer. We need your signature today. I closed the front door and leaned against it, watching him pace my entryway like a caged animal. Donald, sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want to know why you're acting so strange. Sit down. Something in my voice stopped him. He sat on the bottom step of the staircase, the manila folder clutched in his hands like a shield. Where, exactly, did you tell Gregory's client the money from this house sale would go? I asked. What do you mean? I mean, did you tell them the proceeds would be split between you and Darlene? Did you calculate how much you'd each receive after paying off this mysterious mortgage you're so worried about? His jaw tightened. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. Grief can cloud a person's judgment. My judgment is perfectly clear, I said, walking to Russell's armchair, the one the movers would soon carry to Donald's house, whether he wanted it or not. Let me ask you something else. When you had dinner with Darlene to discuss my situation, did either of you ask how I was handling your father's death emotionally? Did you ask if I was sleeping or eating? Or did you spend the entire dinner calculating how much money you could extract from my home? That's not fair, isn't it? I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator app. Let's see. If you sold my house for the $350,000 Gregory likely quoted and split it between you and Darlene after imaginary closing costs, you'd each get about $160,000. Am I close? The color drained from his face. Donald, do you know what your father's pension pays me every month? Mom, I don't see why. For $1,200, I said, letting the number hang in the air. That, along with his Social Security and the dividend payments from investments you know nothing about. Tell me again how I can't afford to keep this house. He stood up abruptly, the folder falling to the floor. You lied to us. I never lied. You assumed. And I didn't correct your assumptions. There is a difference. You let us think you were struggling. You wanted to think I was struggling, I shot back. It made it easier to justify treating me like a problem to be solved. My phone rang. Darlene's name. Answer it, I said. Put it on speaker. He shook his head, but I answered anyway and activated the speaker. Mom, what is this insanity? Darlene's voice screeched. There's a moving truck at my house, and 2 men are trying to deliver a piano I don't have room for. Hello, Darlene. It's the piano you begged for when you were 8. I thought you'd want it back. I don't want it back. And Donald called me about some crazy idea that you're not selling the house. The house isn't being sold, I said calmly. Silence. Then, what do you mean it's not being sold? I mean exactly that. This is my house. Russell left it to me, and me alone. I am not selling it. But Donald said you couldn't afford. Donald, I said, looking directly at my son, was wrong about many things. Another silence, longer this time. When Darlene spoke again, her voice was sharp. Mom, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but people are counting on this sale. I've already talked to Kathleen about her having a bedroom at my house when you move in. Kathleen. I looked at Donald, whose face had gone pale. Tell me, Darlene, what about Kathleen? When was the last time she called me? I don't keep track of her phone calls. The last time she called was December 15th, I said. She wanted to know if I would send her money for a spring break trip. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't mention missing her grandfather. She just needed money. Mom, she's a college student. They're self-absorbed at that age. Is she? Or has she simply learned from watching her mother that grandmothers exist to provide financial support without expecting emotional connection in return? That's not. You're twisting everything. Am I? Darlene, how much money have I sent Kathleen over the past 2 years? No answer. $12,000, I said, my voice ringing with newfound strength. $500 a month, directly to her account. Money you never mentioned to Donald when you claimed I was financially struggling. Money Kathleen apparently believes comes from your sacrifice, not mine. Donald was staring at me now, his mouth slightly agape. I did it because I love my granddaughter and I want her to succeed, I said, turning from the window to face them both, Donald in person, Darlene on the phone. But love isn't supposed to be invisible. Support isn't supposed to be a secret. When did my family decide that my contributions only mattered when they were hidden? Mom, Darlene's voice came through the speaker, smaller now. We never meant. Yes, you did, I said, the truth of it landing with absolute certainty. You meant exactly this. You wanted my resources without my presence. My money without my opinions. My compliance without my autonomy. I ended the call and looked at Donald. The moving truck will be at your house in 30 minutes. I suggest you make room for your childhood memories. Mom, please, he whispered, his bravado gone. We can fix this. How? The question stopped him. I could see him searching for the right words, the magic phrase that would restore his access to my resources without requiring genuine respect. We could have dinner. As a family. Talk about what you really want. What I really want. I laughed, the sound surprising me with its lightness. Donald, what I really want is to live the rest of my life surrounded by people who see me as more than a source of emergency funding. What I want is to wake up in the morning without wondering which of my children will call with their hand extended. What I want is to be missed for my company, not mourned for my money. The moving truck's engine started outside. Donald bent to gather the scattered papers, his movements hurried and desperate. Where are you going to go? I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in months. Somewhere warm. He looked up at me, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the little boy who used to climb into my lap after nightmares. Then he straightened, and the moment was gone. When will you be back? I opened the front door, letting in the morning sunlight and the sound of the moving truck pulling away. I'll let you know. The flight to Madrid was 13 hours of crystalline clarity. For 3 days after the moving truck incident, they had called incessantly. Apologetic voicemails gave way to desperate ones, and finally, to Darlene's angry threat. Fine, Mom. You want to play games? Don't expect us to come running when you realize how lonely you are. The threat, meant to wound me, had instead felt like liberation. I'd turned off my phone and hadn't looked back. Pilar Rodriguez was waiting for me in the arrivals area, a compact, elegant woman with a warm smile and a small sign bearing my name. Mrs. Lawson, welcome. Welcome. She embraced me like an old friend, and as we drove through the winding, sun-drenched streets of Marbella, she spoke of Russell. He was so proud of this house, she said, her accented English musical and kind. He would show me pictures on his phone. You in the kitchen in America, your grandchildren. My Michelle will love the kitchen here, he would say. She will make it sing with life. The house took my breath away. It was a perfect jewel box of whitewashed walls and blue shutters, with bougainvillea spilling over the garden walls in explosions of purple and pink. Inside, it was cool and bright, with terracotta floors and windows that opened onto a small terrace overlooking the vast, glittering Mediterranean. In the kitchen, Pilar had stocked the refrigerator. Tonight you rest, she said, patting my arm. Tomorrow we explore. We are neighbors now. In Spain, neighbors are family. After she left, I stood alone in my Spanish kitchen and felt a profound, bone-deep peace. As the sun began to set, painting the sea in shades of gold and coral, I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped onto the terrace. My phone, forgotten in my purse, began to ring. It was Kathleen, calling for the first time since Christmas. I answered. Grandma? Oh my God, finally. I've been trying to reach you for days. Her voice was sharp with an unfamiliar urgency. Where are you? Mom won't tell me anything except that you had some kind of fight and now you're gone. Kathleen, slow down. I can't. I'm furious. Do you know what I found out? She told me yesterday. She told me you've been sending me money for college. $500 every month. For 2 years. Her voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't I know? The pain in her voice cut through me. Your mother thought it was better that way. Better for who? She cried, the sobs carrying across the ocean. Better for her, so she could take credit? Grandma, I am so ashamed. I let them convince me you were just this sad old lady who needed taking care of. Mom said you were fragile and that I should give you space to grieve. So I did. And meanwhile, you were paying for my spring break trip. And I never even thanked you. I never even asked how you were doing without Grandpa. Kathleen, you have nothing to be ashamed of. Yes, I do. And now they're telling everyone you've had some kind of breakdown and disappeared. But you haven't had a breakdown, have you? Her voice grew stronger. You've just finally had enough of their shit. I smiled. Language, Kathleen. Sorry. But am I right? I looked out at the darkening sea. Yes, you're right. Where are you? Spain, I said softly. Your grandfather bought a house here for our retirement. I'm sitting on the terrace right now, looking at the Mediterranean. A long pause. Then, quietly, is it beautiful? It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Grandma, she said, her voice firm with a new resolve. I need to apologize. You don't need to apologize for anything, sweetheart. You were told lies by people you trusted. But I should have known, she insisted. I want to do better. I want to be better. Then be better, I said, my heart swelling. Call me because you miss me, not because you need something. Visit me because you enjoy my company. Love me because I'm your grandmother, not because I pay your bills. Another pause. Can I visit you in Spain? The question was a ray of light. Kathleen. I have spring break in 3 weeks. I can change my plans. I want to see Grandpa's dream house. I want to sit on that terrace and hear about your new life. Your new life. The phrase sent a profound warmth through my chest. What would your mother say? I don't care what my mother says, Kathleen said fiercely. Grandma, I'm 20 years old, and I just realized I don't really know you at all. I know the version of you they presented, the grandmother who bakes cookies and needs to be handled carefully. But you're not that person, are you? I thought of the woman who had hired the moving truck, who had confronted her children, who had boarded a plane to a new life. No, I said, my voice clear and strong. I'm not that person at all. Good, Kathleen said. I can't wait to meet the real you. 3 weeks later, I watched Kathleen emerge from the Malaga airport terminal. She ran into my arms, and it was an embrace of pure, unadulterated love. That evening, on the terrace, she told me about the confrontation with her mother. I told her that maybe it was time for someone in our family to be selfish on your behalf, Kathleen said, her eyes flashing. And then I asked her if you were having a breakdown, why hadn't any of them come to check on you? She couldn't answer. Because the truth is, they don't care about your well-being. They care about their access to your resources. We sat in comfortable silence as the stars emerged. Can I stay longer than a week? She asked suddenly. I talked to my professors. I can do independent study for the rest of the semester. I don't want to go back yet. I want to spend real time with you. I want to know everything. Tears pricked my eyes. Kathleen, your mother will never forgive me. This isn't about her, Kathleen said, taking my hands in hers. Her grip was warm and sure. This is about me. I was sleepwalking through my life, doing what was expected. But I'm awake now. And I want to spend my awakeness with someone who sees me as more than just a project to be managed. That night, we made the arrangements for her to stay. She called her mother, her voice steady and calm, and informed her of her decision. When she hung up, she turned to me and smiled Russell's smile, full of quiet determination. Any regrets? I asked. Just one, she said, looking out at the endless, star-dusted sea. That it took me 20 years to figure out where I belonged. And as we sat together on my Spanish terrace, the sound of the waves a gentle rhythm beneath our quiet conversation, I realized that my story of loss had become a story of discovery. I had lost the illusion of a family that required my diminishment, but I had found the reality of a love that celebrated my strength. I had come here to find Russell's dream, but in doing so, I had finally, blessedly, found myself. And for the first time since his death, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving.